Good morning and welcome to Farm Factor. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom. On today's show, Duane Toews visits with Kathryn Reif to talk about the spread of anaplasmosis and ways to prevent it. Then enjoy this week's Kansas Soybean update. Next, Duane Toews and Keith Harmoney talk about wildfires and the importance of moisture after a prescribed burn. Then it's this week's Kansas Farm Bureau update, and we'll end with Plain Talk featuring Kyle and Duane. Stay with us.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome to Farm Factor. Up first today, Duane Toews visits with Kathryn Reif to talk about how to reduce the spread of anaplasmosis.
Duane Toews joining you once again here on Ag AM in Kansas, and an opportunity to catch up with Kathryn Reif at the College of Veterinary Medicine at Kansas State University. And Kathryn, anaplasmosis, kind of a slang term that a lot of cattle producers will discuss, but it's an issue that's becoming more prevalent in Kansas. Kind of started on the eastern end of the state and making its way west, and unfortunately more prevalent than what some producers maybe realize.
Yes, so in collaboration with Dr. Greg Hanslachek at the Veterinary Diagnostic Lab at K-State, my group participated in helping to assess the prevalence of anaplasmosis across the state of Kansas. And through our combined work, we found that about 47% of beef cattle herds in the state are actively infected with this particular pathogen, which I think was quite a surprise to several cattle producers or the cattle producing community. Part of our work now is also looking at the strain diversity of Anaplasma marginalia, which is the agent of anaplasmosis, and we found great diversity, great strain or genetic diversity in this pathogen, which has implications on, which could have implications on virulence of the pathogen, transmissibility, and susceptibility or resistance to antimicrobial options that producers have available to them to control or prevent this disease in their cattle herds. We're pretty excited. We recently received a USDA grant to study the current chlorotetracycline treatment options for anaplasmosis in cattle. And what we're going to be doing is propagating a couple different strains of Anaplasma marginalia, and then once they enter into the carrier state of the disease, which is the state that most cattle are in, because it's a chronic disease that once infected, cattle can carry for up to the rest of their life, we're going to try to look to see how clinical disease is affected by 4 different treatment options of chlorotetracycline, so that we can provide evidence to the FDA as to whether the current recommended or the current approved treatment doses for or treatment regimens of chlorotetracycline are actually working to prevent clinical disease or suppress the level of bacteria in the blood of the cattle.
Think about transmission, primarily tick-borne disease or transmitted disease. Flies to some extent, but not nearly as prevalent. But producers can play a part as well in replacing needles and not transferring from one cow to another.
Yes, so ticks are the biological vector of anaplasmosis, which means that the tick actually replicates the pathogen within it. Flies are an example of a mechanical means of transmission, so the bacteria isn't replicating on the fly. It's really a function of contamination. You have to have a really high bacteremia in the cow in order for those mechanical means of transmission to be successful. But in the carrier state, it's much less successful. Producers can complicate transmission or add to the transmission problems by reusing needles or not disinfecting surgical equipment like dehorners. So if one of the best ways, especially if you want to limit the transmission of anaplasmosis in your herd, is to do just that, is to disinfect those surgical instruments and change needles as is feasible.
Our thanks to Dr. Kathryn Reif joining us from the Vet Med College here on Ag AM in Kansas. Jamie, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Duane. The Kansas Soybean Update is next here on Farm Factor. Don't go away.
Watch Ag AM in Kansas online at agaminkansas.com.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
This segment is brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Welcome back to Farm Factor and the Kansas Soybean Update.
This is the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Ignacio Ciampiti, K-State Cropping Systems Specialist, joins us. And Ignacio, there's new guidance from the Soy Checkoff that aims to help farmers maximize their data to make their best management decisions.
The idea is to provide guidance on how to integrate technology to help farmers to make better management decisions. With that purpose, we develop a set of different educational tools.
And really focusing on that data literacy, they offer a lot of insights and tips that are really tailored for soybean farmers?
Yes, basically we go all the way from looking at what are the main data and type of digital tools and data that is available today, and start discussing a little bit how farmers can start integrating and using that technology. So we go from satellite imagery, we go to GPS, prescription software, sensors, soil sampling, variable rate technologies. We try to come up with what we call the different data sources, and then we went with the idea of not only thinking about agronomy, but specifically thinking about all the different type of data sources. And from our side, we basically, from the agronomy data side, we highlight the idea of remote sensing, we highlight the idea of farmers that they're using today climate, we highlight the idea of the using crops, and then one of the last resources on that is basically the idea of using the satellite and data. Then when you look at the data types, there are different data types. Not only the agronomy ones that I just highlighted, but we have machine data, prescription, remote sense, that is including basically drones, planes, and then all the production data. That is basically farmers are dealing today with planting, sprayers, and harvest equipment. So all that data is coming from the production on yield and biomass, supply data is very relevant.
And Kansas State University, one of 5 land-grant universities to cooperate on this project.
Yes, we have an excellent opportunity to work with different universities. We work with Ohio State, that was the main project leader, and then we collaborate with Iowa State University, University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and then our goal was specifically to come up with these, we call the 6 different type of topics on data. That is data fundamentals, data sources, data integrity, data management, the legal aspect of the data, and then the data utilizations.
And you can go to unitedsoybean.org/tech toolshed to get more information. That is Ignacio Ciampiti, K-State Cropping Systems Specialist, who joins us on the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Learn more at kansassoybeans.org. For Kansas Soybeans, I'm Greg Akagi.
Stay with us after this break for more Farm Factor as Duane visits with Keith Harmoney about wildfires.
What if sustainability were synonymous with U.S. soy? If energy efficiency, water quality, and soil health help define U.S. soy's value, that future is here, the time is now. To meet end-user demands, the Soybean Checkoff is committing to sustainability that's achievable, worthwhile, and enduring. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Imagine turning soybean oil, used cooking oils, and waste animal fats into fuel so amazing it drives U.S. jobs and our economy forward. Learn more about biodiesel at americasadvancedbiofuel.com.
Kim Mannering with Hardy Insurance. Today we will talk about employee safety and work comp coverage. On your farm, do you ask your friends to come help? Are they considered employees or neighbors helping neighbors? Did you know that you can be held responsible just as if it's a work comp accident? Give me a call, we can discuss. 316-945-6733.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
This segment brought to you by Sure Crop, liquid crop nutrition delivered right to your farm.
We're back. Now we learn about wildfires with Duane Toews and Keith Harmoney.
Duane Toews joining you once again here on Ag AM in Kansas, and an opportunity to catch up with Keith Harmoney, works at the Ag Research Center in Hays, Kansas. Keith, talking about wildfires and their impact on grasslands. It's a little different scenario than what we typically have with controlled burns in the eastern part of the state, where we time it at an appropriate time. Wildfires, we never know when they're going to happen, and depending on what time of year that is, can have pretty dramatic and significant impacts on our native ranges.
Yeah, and under conditions of wildfire, they're usually not occurring under the most ideal climate conditions and also time of year. And we're usually most concerned with those that are occurring during a dormant season, a time of year when there's a long period where the vegetation isn't going to be covering the soil, and that there's going to be no cover basically on the rangeland through the winter period. So those are the ones that we're most concerned about, are the ones that are going to be exposing the rangeland to the most extreme weather conditions without any cover on the soil.
Certainly, a lot of folks heard about the big fires in the southern part of the state, but the Ag Research Center actually had some ground north of Hays that had a wildfire situation. You had an opportunity to really maybe learn some things from that, at least do some evaluations of what kind of impacts that might have.
Yeah, the week of March 3rd to the 10th back in 2017, there were several wildfires that broke out in western Kansas, and of course the large one was the Starbuck fire down in southern Kansas. But we had our own fire in northeast Ellis County and some of our research range property, and we were doing an experiment up there on the property already. So we had areas of transects that we were monitoring production and also looking at plant composition before our fire occurred. So we were able to do some looking before and after just to see what was taking place.
Fortunately, as things worked out, it was a year that we got plenty of moisture following that fire, which ultimately had a pretty big impact on how quickly that range recovered.
Yeah, one of the things that you like to see after, well, even when you do a prescribed burn or when you have a wildfire, is you'd like to have soil moisture. So that way the plants are going to have that moisture that they can uptake and they can produce growth quickly. And that's also why you'd like to have it occur when those fires occur closer to when the start of the growing season is going to occur, or during the growing season, so that you have the temperatures for those plants to start growing and pop out of the ground right away after the fire passes. And our soils were dry in that first week of March in 2017, and we did have good precipitation that occurred in April and May of that year. So we ended up having some good soil moisture, and we actually saw good growth occurring right away in May. And that was what we wanted to see. We wanted to see that plant growth come out quickly and cover the soil and cover that bare soil and start to producing a lot of dry matter so that we can eventually get some vegetative cover and litter cover on top of that soil. So those two things are important in order to stop the impact of rainfall on the soil surface so that we don't get crusting that occurs, and so that we also have that litter and vegetative cover there to stop the flow of water across the soil surface so that we get infiltration. And eventually we want to get that litter cover over the soil so that we can also reduce the evaporation that we can see from bare soils out here in western Kansas.
All right, thanks to Keith Harmoney with the Ag Research Center at Hayes joining us on Ag AM in Kansas. Jamie, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Duane. Come back after the break for this week's Kansas Farm Bureau update.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
As fourth-generation farmers themselves, Heinen Brothers Ag Service understands the risk and rewards of farming. So when it comes to quality aerial and ground application, fertilizer, ag chemicals, and anhydrous ammonia, call Heinen Brothers Ag today, 800-760-4964.
About 6 jumps later, I was laying on the ground and thinking, boy, my shoulders sure hurt. I kept waiting, and it didn't get better and didn't get better. I'd heard about Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center on the radio. Got down there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 11:30 the procedure was all over, and it just kept getting better and better. And within 6 weeks, I was back digging post holes and doing the other hard work that I'd been doing before the accident. And I'm really pleased. It's really worked out well for me.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Date. Welcome back to Farm Factor and the Kansas Farm Bureau update.
Kansas Farm Bureau is celebrating 100 years by going on tour across Kansas, and we want our members to join in. On Monday, July 29th, we will tour Juniper Hills Farms, a first-generation farm with more than 150 acres of USDA-certified organic land, along with 400 acres of conventional farmland in Douglas County. Then we will have lunch at Dale Banks Angus Ranch, a fifth-generation ranch in Greenwood County. After lunch, we will head to learn about an innovative Ag in the Classroom program at Bluestem Elementary in Butler County, followed by an evening meal at Eberly Farms in Sedgwick County. On Tuesday, July 30th, our day will start with a tour of Cargill's new protein headquarters in Wichita. Members can tour the Stafford County Flour Mill and Water Tech Farm in Pawnee County. Finally, on Wednesday, July 31st, we will head west to tour New Life, a sorghum processing facility in Scott County. Then make our way north to see research in action at the K-State Northwest Kansas Research Center in Colby. We will end our tour with an evening meal at the Prairie Museum in Thomas County. Space is limited and members are responsible for their own transportation. Meals are $10. To register, visit www.kfb.org.
Stay with us. We'll be back after the break with Plain Talk.
KFRM is one of the largest farm radio stations in the nation, dedicated to informing and entertaining rural listeners from northern Oklahoma to southwestern Nebraska. You can catch KFRM in many ways. Of course, 550 on the AM dial, streaming at kfrm.com, or on your smartphone by going to the TuneIn Radio app, or on Ag AM in Kansas on Tuesdays and Facebook every day of the week. KFRM, tune us in. You'll be glad you did.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well in their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but yet we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we're glad to answer it and work with you.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Corn. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Welcome back. Plain Talk is next with Kyle Bauer and Duane Toews.
Hi, this is Kyle Bauer with Plain Talk with Duane Toews, the man who knows that horses don't speak English, but they speak perfect horse. Duane Toews.
Perfect horse.
Exactly.
Not like pig horse or pig Latin or Spanish.
Creole horse, Spanish horse.
Spanish horse.
Yeah.
Just plain
Perfect
old perfect horse.
So you think people understand that horses don't speak English?
I think there's some people that think their horse understands them. I think they're probably mistaken.
So for them to respond to a verbal command, they could just as well be grunting, and they would probably learn to respond to the grunt.
If they made the same grunt every time. Yeah, I think horses are smart enough to learn, but I don't really think they understand
They don't understand that, whoa. You just will say,
if you can do
every time,
then
you're fine.
Probably all right.
All right.
Your fact or fiction question of the day, Kyle Bauer. Dr. Pepper, originally sold as an intellectual beverage and temperance drink. Fact or fiction?
Thought it originally sold as a medicinal purposes. I'll go with fiction.
It is fiction. It was actually Coca-Cola.
That was for intellectual? I thought it was medicinal also.
An intellectual beverage and temperance drink. By temperance,
well, it was
like sold during the times of Prohibition.
Right. Of course, you understand that Coke originally had cocaine in it.
Yeah, so much for their temperance. Yeah, we went from alcohol to hallucinogenic drug.
We were in
Las
Vegas.
Handy.
Yeah, don't say that word ever again. We were in Las Vegas recently and went to the Mob Museum.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what most people do when they go to Las Vegas. They go to a museum.
Check out a museum of mobs.
Yeah. And boy, I will tell you, the Prohibition times was a moneymaker for the mob. And they fought hard that it didn't get taken away.
Right.
Of course, not Theodore. Yeah, Teddy. Franklin Roosevelt ran for president on the the platform that he is going to get rid of Prohibition. Got him elected in a landslide.
Might as well be able to tax it.
Well, I think people were just not happy.
Tired of not being able to have a drink.
I will tell you, as you walk through there and read about the rise of Prohibition and the rise of the mobs, it just sounded like what we hear about today on the gangs with the drug trade. I mean, if you every time you read mob, you would just insert gang, and every time you read alcohol, you would insert drugs.
Right.
It's like, holy smokes.
There's a stark similarity here.
Yeah, and of course they got rid of Prohibition, and that lowered some of the profitability of the drug people. They just went on to something else.
Right.
But you kind of wonder if we ought to just declare a victory on the war on drugs and get out. Well, it's political, so you always have to declare a victory.
Yeah, we won.
Yeah, always say you won. And the other guy's going to say he won too.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Whoever gets to write the book.
Or whoever the media is giving the most attention to, he gets to declare it the loudest.
I suspect it might not go the way folks who would want it to go, as far as the media is much more inclined to look at the bad news side of this story.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, some will say they only sort the bad news out for certain people, but I think they tend to always go for the bad news. I mean, let's face it,
good news doesn't sell very well.
Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. See you next week on Farm Factor.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.